facts without them. The science of criminal investigation is nothing more than a guessing game. From Blake Edwards. Good evening everyone, I am Kristen J. Altares. Together with my group, we will discuss the preliminary consideration. In preliminary consideration, we have special crime investigation with forensic medicine. What is special crime investigation with forensic medicine? Which especially deals with the investigation of crimes against person. What is crime and crimes against person? The crimes against person, it consists of offenses that usually involve causing or attempting to cause bodily harm or a threat of bodily harm. Ito yung mga nagkakos ng isang attempting crime sa person, like for example, murder, rape, sexual assault, child abuse, and sexual harassment. Next, coupled with medical-legal aspect of death. Ano ba yung medical-legal death? A medical-legal is a term used to describe any unclear, largely suspicious death that must be investigated, such as unexpected, sudden, or violent deaths. Sinasabi lang dito is coupled with medical aspect of death. Like for example, lahat ng kailangan sa crime, lahat ng may kailangan ng medical-legal sa, like for example, in an unexpected death, it is a sudden natural causes such as heart attack, brain hemorrhage, or clot death. And then the sudden death is from the serious illness that known about, but where death wasn't expected. Like for example, epilepsy, murder, or like for example are the latest communicable disease such as COVID-19. And then from the violent deaths. In violent deaths, we have suicide, homicide, and accident. Next, it is a sexual offenses. In sexual offenses, it is any sexual act directed against another person without the consent of the person, including instances when the person is unable to give consent. Like for example, here is sexual assault and abuse, like unwanted kissing or touching, unwanted rough or violent sexual activity, like ito nga, yung rape or attempted rape. Yun yung pinaka magandang example pagdating sa sexual offenses. Then next, physical injuries. Any person who shall wound, beat, or assault by another. For example, yung mga signs na inattack ka ng person, or may mga fracture ka, may mga may sugat. That's one of fractures of bruises, or electrical injuries, discolation. So, we go the preliminary consideration. In preliminary consideration, the investigation of crimes is against property. If kanina, sabi ko na ang special crime investigation with forensic medicine, it is crimes against person. So, magkakaroon ng pagbabago pagdating sa preliminary consideration, which is the investigation of crimes against property. It is other offenses that is penalized by special laws. The penalized by special laws, for example, ito yung mga illegal possession, trafficking dangerous drug, illegal possession of firearms, Yun yung mga kadalasang example. Tapos, it is fraying innocent victims belonging to the most disadvantages. Then, fraying innocent victims belonging to the most disadvantaged and most vulnerable group of people. So, in criminal investigation, papasok na dito yung special crime investigation with simulation of interview and interrogation. So, in special crime investigation with simulation on interview and interrogation, it especially deals with crimes against property. So, kung kanina, ang special crime investigation with forensic medicines, it is crimes against person. So, in this special crime investigation with simulation on interview and interrogation, it is a crime against property. Ano nga ba itong mga crimes against property na to? Like for example, it is a robbery, bribery, burglary, and arson, theft. It is other crimes and offenses. Like for example, those who need preferential attention, purposely develop knowledge, abilities, skills, and work values. These crimes against person or other crimes and offenses, it is under the SOPs, which is the Standard Operation Procedure, which is that includes of procedures and duties of the dispatcher, jailer, matron, and other personnel concerned, which may reflected in the duty manual. And ano ba yung purpose nitong standard operating procedure na to during the crime scene or the investigation? Saan it is a systematic and organized procedure on crime scene investigation is therefore the key to ensuring that all potential physical evidence are properly preserved and collected, and all possible witnesses are identified and documented, and also all the necessary basic procedure are undertaken properly. Also, conducting interview and interrogation. Likewise, as said, under the SOP, you need to collect the physical evidence. They analyze all the evidence, the interview and interrogation to the suspect and to the witness. We have modern special crime investigation. Crime investigation is a broad term encompasses a wide range, especially the aim to determine how event occurred. So, in this special crime investigation, an investigator, kailangan malaman niya kung paano ba nag-exist yung crime na yon or yung scene na yon during that event, or paano niya ma-determine yung crime scene na yon, kung saan ba nanggaling, paano nagsimula, paano nagtapos, nag-start, sino ba yung may sala, ganon. And then, special crime investigation establish an evidence-based fact pattern to prove the guilt or innocence of an accused person in a criminal event. Siyempre, as an investigator, nag-aral yan, nag-practice yan, yung mga skills, kung paano mag-establish ng evidence, paano sila ano yung mga skills nila para makuha yung pattern na yun, para ma-prove yung isang suspect na guilty or yung innocent ng isang ng akusado dun sa isang crime or a crime scene na nangyari. And then, in some cases, when a person is found in committing the criminal act and apprehended at the scene, the criminal investigation is not complex undertaking. However, in the cases where the criminal event is discovered after the fact or when the culprit is not readily apparent, the process of criminal investigation become complex and protracted. So, dito, kagaya nga nasabi ko kanina, as an investigator, kailangan niya ng skills and practices na pinag-aaralan talaga nila na kung magkakaroon man ng tawag ito, kontik dun sa may investigation nila na nandoon na yung pake, nandoon na yung tunay na ebidensya, pero meron pa rin nagkakaroon pa rin ng panibagong source or evidence na pwedeng hindi ka lang, ang investigator kasi hindi nagpo-focus sa isang suspect lang. If ever, kung may magkakaroon pa or magkakaroon pa ng existent suspect dun sa crime scene na yon. So, ang ginagawa dito as a criminal investigator, must follow the practices. Ano bang yung kailangan i-follow ng isang investigator para maging successful yung investigation na gagawin niya? So first, we have identifying. In identifying, dito ina-identify yung physical evidence, the witness, kung sino ba yung mga nakakita dun sa crime, kung paano siya nagsimula, paano siya nagtapos. And then, identify the suspect who may be. Sino nga ba yung suspect dun sa crime na yon? Next one, we have collecting. So, in collecting, we need to collect the consistency of the evidence that we had to believe that suspect is that a person is a suspect for the crime. Para malaman natin kung yung kinolekta natin na evidence is kompleto and consistent yon, para ang isang akusado ay mag-guilty sa ginawa niyang crime. Ayun yung mga evidence na collecting ng isang investigator na magiging guilty yung accused na siya talaga yung gumawa nun as a suspect dun sa crime na yun. And then we have recording. So in recording, dito may kita natin na nagpo-photograph sila, yung investigator, nire-record nila ano ba yung mga ebidensyang nakuha nila, paano na nangyari, paano naganap. Siyempre dun sa mga witness, tinatanong yan, ano ba nangyari, sino nagsimula, sino yung possible na suspect. Ayun yung tinatawag na recording. Next is the preserving of evidence. In preserving evidence, dito malalaman kung sino ba yung unknown of suspect. Then, naggagawa din sila ng additional thinking skills analysis. Kung sino pa ba yung pwedeng maging suspect, or meron silang ginagamit nga na theory development, kung saan ito nga yung mga practices or skills nila na like for example, the chemical analysis involves in preserving of evidence na ginagamitan ng mga machine na para malaman kung sino nga ba yung suspect sa isang crime, or yung mga evidence na yon, para malaman natin is consistent na pwede nating ma-validate as a fact na laban dun sa suspect na yun na siya yung gumawa ng crime. So, in special crime investigation, meron an investigator, meron yung mga skills. So, the craft of special investigation has been evolving since birth of modern policing in mid-70s. This use of forensic physical matching. 1700s, meron ng skills nung ang investigation pagdating sa special crime investigation. Yung mga investigator gumagamit ng forensic physical matching. So, ito yung mga kung magaling ka sa puzzle, paano mo malaman kung ano ba yung pinagmulan ng crime? Kung sino ba yung suspect? It is used to link a suspect to an offense. Yun nga, sabi ko nga, it is illustrate the beginnings of what exists today as broad forensic science to aid investigator in the development of evidence. And then, nire-recognize na rin to as investigated tool. Only a few years earlier in 1886, nagkaroon na naman ng special skills yung investigator. Ito yung use of photography, kung saan ito yung tinatawag nilang kauna-unahang rogues gallery ng criminal photographs implemented by the New York Police Department or NYPD. So dito, ang rogues gallery ay isang unorganized collection of photographs of known criminals taken at time of their most recent conviction for crime. So, kung makikita nyo dito sa picture, a photographs or a cabinet that all the photo of a criminals dyan nakalagay. Iba't ibang type of criminals ang nandiyan dyan. Prior to this organized collection of criminal photos, special characteristic on wanted poster had been limited sketch artist rendering. Iba-ibang klase yan. May suspects may mga wanted, may mga suspect. Yun yung mga nakalagay dyan sa rogues gallery. Syempre, hindi magpapatalo yung mga generation natin ngayon. Hanggang sa nag-evolve na nag-evolve. So, yung kanina, we have a physical matching. Then, the second one is the photography. So, in the present time, today, the ability of forensic expert has increased potentially when compared to early policing. Mas nag-improve siya, mas naging increase siya. Kasi, this is used, ito yung ginagamit nila na examining of physical evidence to identify the suspect nga. Ano ba yung mga physical evidence na yan na pwede na lang examine laban dun sa suspect na yun, and to identify that suspect in a crime. So, the physical evidence can be collected, preserved, analyzed, and it is used to the court to establish a fact. Like for example, you are collecting like for example, of physical evidence, documenting blood, hair and fiber, DNA or fingerprints, firearms, and footprints or footprints. So, especially yan yung mga karaniwang physical evidence na nakikita natin pagdating sa crime scene. Next, this examining of physical evidence to identify suspect, it is a scientific discoveries in a wide range of disciplines have contributed to the development and evolution of forensic specialties. So, etong examine of physical evidence to identify suspect, yun nga, in early 1700s, gumagamit sila ng physical matching, photography, examining of physical evidence to identify the suspect, So, meron pa din na pwede nilang mga pwedeng types na pwede lang ma-identify yung suspect using physical evidence para may preserve to. Like for example, the physical matching, chemical analysis, fingerprints, barefoot morphology. At ito yung pag-examine sa mga footprints. Then, odontology. Ito yung scientific study ng mga structure and diseases of teeth. Then, we have toxicology. The toxicology is taong nag-i-study or mga toxicologists na nag-study ng how natural or man-made poison cause undesirable effects in living organism. And like for example, yung poison nga, paano siya nakaka-apekto dun sa taong, or what are the harmful or adverse effect pagdating dun sa mga tao na yun na ginagamitan ng poison ng isang tao or a criminal act. Next, entomology, study of insect and their relationship to humans, the environment, and other organisms. Next, we have hair and fiber, biometric analysis, ballistic. So, sa ballistic, it is yung mga firearms, illegal possession of firearms, yun yung mga ginagamitan ng ballistic. And then, the latest one is the DNA test. So, sa DNA test, ito yung mga karaniwang ginagamit nila pagdating para malaman kung sino yung mga physical evidence na pwede nilang malaman to know who is the suspect of a crime, of that existing crime. Go effective special crime investigation. So, in effective special crime investigation ng isang investigator, dapat meron siya ng an effective strategy for learning any used skill to define it and break it down into logical steps, establishing a progression that can be followed and repeated to reach the desired result. The process of investigation is no exception and can be effectively explained and learned in this manner. So, pagdating sa effective special crime investigation, as investigator, dapat meron na siya mga effective strategy para malaman pa kung ano pa ba yung mga bagong new skill na pwede niyang gamitin as investigator para dun sa investigation ng isang crime. So, an effective special crime investigation, we have the process of investigation. So, in the process of investigation, we have distinction between investigative tasks and investigative thinking. Second, we have progression of investigative process. Third, the distinction between the tactical, investigative, and strategic investigative responses. The distinction between the active events and inactive event. 5, the threat versus action response dilemma. And 4, the concept of event classification and offenses recognition and connection of active events and powers and afforded under exigent circumference, the responses and critical need to transition from tactical response to strategic response. So, this process of investigation, it is more on collecting, identifying information or the witness, the suspect on a crime, and then it is the analyzation of the circumstances of a crime to resolve it. So, in investigation strategy nga, kagaya na sinabi ko, kailangan ma-identify and collect all available evidence. So, kailangan consistent yung evidence na makukuha ng isang investigator para mag-link yung suspect na sa isang crime. So, next is we have identify all the witness, victims, and possible suspect. Next, accurate document the criminal event. So, in documenting or recording, kailangan accurate yan. Mula simula, paano nag-exist yung crime. So, paano nag-exist yung crime, paano nagtapos, sino ba yung may sala, sino ba yung sino ba yung victim, sino ba nakakilala sa victim, anong relation nung victim, ng suspect dun sa victim. And then, accurate document the investigation action. Like for example, kagaya ng sinabi ko, na kailangan maging accurate yung investigation, investigator, pagdating sa mga investigative action niya. So, magiging focus siya sa ginagawa niyang pag-collect and analyzing the evidence that he have. Then, develop theories of how the crime was committed and who was being the suspect. Formulate an investigated plan to make an arrest. So, in development, how or was the committed and who was the suspect be? So, dito, as an investigator, mas ina-analyze niya pa yung preserving ng mga evidence para kung sino pa yung mga possible suspect, kung paano nagkaroon ng ganitong crime or paano nila na-commit yung crime na yon. And then, formulate an investigation plan to make an arrest. So, after you collect, analyzing, recording, all the evidence that is consistent, that it's make to see, believe that that all the evidence that you collected and analyzed, it is linked to the suspect. So, you can formulate an investigative plan to make an arrest. If you are planning to make an arrest, you need the permission of the court before you arrest. That person need to be arrested because he is the suspect. That all the evidence is linked with him. An investigator, avoid the three investigation error. So first, failing to identify and collect available evidence information. Kaya kagaya ng sinabi ko, kailangan maging consistent yung evidence na nasa iyo, na-collect mo, na-identify mo. Hindi ka pwedeng magkulang ng isa kasi hindi mo malilink kung sino talaga yung suspect. Even though alam mong siya yung suspect, pero kulang yung evidence na papakita mo. Then, failing to effectively analyze the evidence and information collected to identify the suspect and form reasonable ground to take action. So, hindi mo kaagad i-analyze na, ay siya yung suspect. Pero, as investigator nga, kailangan he have an experience practice to learn how and what is the criminal investigation practices. Kasi as yung investigator, kailangan nilang mag-test to analyze the physical evidence kung siya ba talaga or may mga other test pa na ginagamit para malaman talaga na siya yung suspect. So, number 3, becoming too quickly focused on one suspect or theory of events and ignoring evidence of other viable suspect or theories that should be considered. Like for example, dito, kailangan hindi ka focus sa isang suspect. Kasi it is possible na meron pang suspect dun sa crime na yon. And then, pwede rin na yung action mo is maging mapasama or yung innocent na maging siya yung suspect. So, maraming inosente na nagiging suspect dahil sometimes as an investigator, kulang yung evidence na binibigay nila, and minsan nakapokus lang sila sa isang suspect na pwedeng may possible suspect pa na natitira dun sa isang crime. So next, we have the investigative task versus investigative thinking. So, ano nga ba yung investigative task nito? Kagaya ng sabi ko kanina, relate to the information gathering process that feed into investigative thinking in the result. So, it is identifying physical evidence, gathering information, evidence collection, evidence protection, witnesses interviewing, and suspect interviewing and interrogation. So, dito napapasok yung simulation ng investigation pagdating sa interrogation and interviewing ng isang suspect or witnesses, a special crime investigation. It must be learned and practiced with high degree of skills to feed maximum amount of accurate information into investigative thinking process. So, kagaya ng sabi ko, kailangan ang investigator must be learned and practiced with a high degree of skills. So, kailangan ang investigator ay may alam at pinag-aralan yung mga evidence na nakuha niya, na-collect niya, na-gather information, na magdiling talaga dun sa process na yun. So, it can be accurate siya pagdating na sa thinking investigation process. So, this investigative task, it's an criminal investigation that it is aimed collecting, validating, and preserving information na magsusupport dun sa thinking or investigative thinking process natin. While the investigative thinking, it is the process of analyzing and theorizing to develop investigative plans. So, kung sa investigative task, na-collect mo na, nag-gather mo na yung mga information na dapat mag-gather yung mga information, physical evidence. So, in investigative thinking, dito mo na ipaprocess yung analyzing ng information na yon, na para malaman kung sino ba yung suspect or sino ba yung suspect or may establish natin na mabibigyan ng reasonable ground yung mga taong or the possible suspect in a crime. So, it is aimed at analyzing the information collected and developing theories of what happened, the way an event occurred, and establishing reasonable ground to believe. So, those reasonable grounds to believe will identify the suspect and lead the arrest and charges. Kaya nga sabi ko kanina, kailangan ang investigator are learn and practices ng mga new skills and maximum high degree ng mga pagdating sa investigation. So, if ang investigator magaling sa mga patterns, those reasonable grounds to believe will identify the suspect. So, investigative thinking is the process of analyzing an information, considering alternate possibilities to establish the way an event occurred and to determine if they are reasonable. So, if the analyze niya na information and consideration and alternative possibilities, this is the end of my presentation. So, the continuation of our presentation will be discussed of my members. So, this is the references.
Hello po, ako po si Prince Jade Phillips and I'm from BS Criminology 3. So, ang i-report po namin ngayon or ang sa specialist crime investigation, sir, is kami ang group 1. So, we will report I will report the progress in special crime investigation, and I will try to explain ng mabilis. So, sira ang aking PowerPoint, hindi po ako maka-access sa PowerPoint. So, screenshots na lang po. Pero, still readable naman, sir. So, ito po. Mabilis lang po. So, what is a progress in special investigation? The investigation process is a progression of activities, of steps moving from evidence gathering task to information analysis. So, being investigator, it is a process or a progress. It is a progression of activities. So, in every crime scene, or as an investigator in every crime scene or in any events, you are learning something from it. So, over time, you will become a great investigator. So, you have to know the progression of of activities. It will progress. So, everything will progress. Uh, so, being a criminal investigator is you have to know the evidence. So, kailangan magaling ka sa ebidensya, whether it's an evidence or it's not an evidence in a crime. So, magaling ka dapat sa pag-identify ng mga evidence, etc., etc., etc. And being a criminal investigator, you have to be a critical thinker. So, kailangan po natin na mabisa tayo. Para maging effective tayo, is kailangan malalim tayo mag-isip. Hindi tayo dahil ang pagiging investigator ay napakahalaga sa criminal justice system ng Pilipinas or any state or any country. Napakahalaga ng criminal investigation. Ayun lang po. So, that's the progress in special crime investigation. So, explain naman natin yung tactical investigation versus strategic investigation. Dahil mabilis lang po ito. Dahil konti lang po ang kaya ng, saglit lang po ang kaya ng aking cellphone. So, dito ba? So, tactical investigation versus strategic investigation. Tactical investigation, I'll try to read it for you. These two different types of investigation are defined by the nature and status of the event that the investigator is facing. So, being so the tactical investigation is something is an approach for immediate response. That needs immediate response. For me, sir, that's my idea. And the strategic investigation is the thing that that needs more time for you to think as an investigator, so you can provide a good judgment. Ayun po yung sa tingin ko sa strategic investigation. So we will proceed to the event classification and offense recognition. So event classification, tayo sa event classification. In order to enter any investigation in either the tactical or strategic response mode of an investigator must engage their thinking processes, make decisions about the event they are confronting. So as an investigator, you must know the thinking process, and you have to provide if you provide an immediate, whether it's an active or inactive situation, you must provide a good or a better judgment. So in event classification is you have to you have to be good at identifying an event, whether it needs immediate response or it doesn't need any immediate response. So offense recognition, but from the word itself, offense recognition, it's when you recognizing the offense. So as an as a criminology student, we are studying some offenses that we can use when we go to the field, when we are law enforcer someday, become a law enforcer someday. So as an investigator, you must know how to recognize an offense so you can be effective. And that's my own opinion there, sir. So the last one that we will explain is the use of STARE in special crime investigation. So it is an acronym for situation, task, analysis, investigations, and results. So Just like what I said earlier, situation. From the word situation, you have to know the facts that happen to the event or ano yung mga nangyari sa isang event. Whether it's an inactive or an active event that needs immediate response or a longer response or a longer or that needs a critical thinking or logical. By the way, the immediate response needs it needs to be handled very well as well. So
Good afternoon everyone. I am Rodrigo Bakaykay Jr. and I'll be discussing about the continuation of the chapter 1, the preliminary considerations. Special crime investigation as a process. So it is a multifaceted problem solving. So maraming phases or steps ang special crime investigation. Problem solving because it is an investigative process, progression of activities or steps, moving from evidence gathering task to information analysis, theory development and validation, to forming reasonable ground to believe, and finally to the arrest and charge of a suspect. After a criminal event is over, the criminal investigator is expected to preserve the crime scene, collect the evidence, and devise an investigative plan that will lead to forming of reasonable grounds to identify and arrest the person or persons responsible for the crime. So, pagkatapos po ng criminal event, so expected na po yan sa ating mga criminal investigator na i-preserve yung crime scene o i-secure yung area to avoid persons from going in and out the crime scene. So kailangan na i-collect lahat ng evidences, any physical evidence or gather information about the crime, o kailangan tanungin yung mga suspect or witnesses na nakakita sa crime scene. So kailangan din mag-form ng investigative plan so that ma-identify yung person or persons responsible for a crime para po ma-aresto. So to meet these challenges, criminal investigators through training and experience learn investigative process to develop investigative plans and prioritize responses. So para po ma-meet yung mga challenges as a criminal investigator, nag-undergo rin po sila ng training. So, pinag-aaralan nila yung mga investigative process and dinidevelop yung knowledge nila about investigative plans and yung mga prioritized responses. So, ginagawa nila ito upang maging isang effective na criminal investigator kasi ang pag-iimbestiga ay hindi lang basta pag-gather ng mga information o pagko-collect ng physical evidences. It also involves life and death situation of the people around the area and the law enforcer itself. These investigative responses, information analysis, and plan-making skills are broken out using illustrations of both tactical and strategic investigative thinking. So, dito na po pumapasok yung mga pinag-aralan, yung mga training na sinagawa ng ating mga criminal investigators. The investigative responses, the investigative plans, information analysis, plan-making skills ay dito po nagagamit po ng ating criminal investigators whenever they had operations, whether it's a tactical or a strategic investigation. Special crime investigation is not just a set of task skills. It is equally a set of thinking skills. So to become an effective investigator, these skills need to be consciously understood and developed to the point where they are deliberately engaged to work through the problem-solving process that is criminal investigation. So para po maging isang effective na investigator is dapat hindi lang po task skills ang mayroon ka. Kailangan din ng thinking skills. So kailangan i-develop ito ng ating mga criminal investigator to the point na magagamit siya deliberately engaged to work through the problem solving process because yun po yung criminal investigation. Values of special crime investigation. Special crime investigation is a very important of any criminal proceeding, and the police and law enforcement officers have seen that through development of case management system, which shows that many newer methods of criminal investigation have evolved. So mahalaga po ang special crime investigation sa kahit anong criminal proceeding at nakita at subok na po ito nating mga police and law enforcement officers through case management system. So, the question is, bakit kailangan ng mga newer methods of criminal investigation? So, the search for newer method is to avoid the uncivilized law enforcement practices like torture and coercive. Development of new tools has led to emergence of scientific tools of interrogation and interview. So, example po dito ay ang lie detector test or the polygraph test, truth serum test, and the brain mapping test. So these tools are a result of advance in science, but they often raise doubts regarding basic human rights and also about their reliability. So questions are raised about their validity in the light of legal principles and others, rejecting it as a blatant violation of Constitution. Recently, the police and law enforcement agencies have turned to scientific means in extracting admission or confession from the suspect. So, the use of scientific means has provoked the denouncing of psychological third degree and precipitated medical-legal controversies on one hand and has proved to be scientific method of interrogation or interview on the other hand. So, useful po itong mga new development tools or scientific tools used in interview or interrogation. Pero, mayroon pong mga medical legal controversies like the psychological third degree. So, yung psychological third degree, it is a long and intense period of questioning. So, nagkakaroon po ng problema kasi mayroon pong mga effect yung may cause yung paggamit po ng mga scientific tools. So it causes a trauma to a specific person na ini-interview or ini-interrogate or na nagkakos po ng pagkasira ng utak. So nagkakaroon po siya ng mga medical legal controversies. So in one hand, prove naman po siya na isa siyang scientific method na pwedeng gamitin sa interrogation and interview. Lastly, similar with the works of social science researchers, there are 5 main steps involved in the scientific method of conducting special crime investigation as follows. First, so stating the problem. So kailangan i-state yung problem. Second, forming the hypothesis. So forming the hypothesis is mga theories. Yun po yung mga nagfo-form tayo ng theories. 3. Collection of data by observing and experimenting. 4 is interpreting this data. And 5. Drawing conclusions. Reminders in special crime investigation. In the conduct of special crime investigation, investigator has to approach the case as if it will be the only opportunity to preserve and recover these physical clues. So, pag nagkakandak po ng special crime investigation, so investigator must keep in mind or approach the case as if it will be their only opportunity to preserve and recover these physical clues. It is to remind them to be more cautious or careful in collecting the evidences, most especially, for example, fingerprints. So, pag magle-left po tayo ng fingerprints sa glasses or doorknobs, kailangan mag-ingat tayo kasi once na na-deteriorate yung fingerprint, hindi na po natin ito maibabalik. So, kailangan extra careful tayo in collecting the physical clues. The investigator should carefully consider other case information or statements from witnesses or suspect in their objective assessment of the case. So, pwede pong magtingin ating mga criminal investigator sa ibang kaso, but ang kailangan lang nilang mag-ingat kasi hindi po lahat ng crime scene is magkakapareho. Crime scene is unique. So, every crime scene is unique. So, hindi po sila magkakapareho. It may lead you to another path. So, kailangan lang maging maingat sa pagkuha ng ibang information sa ibang kaso. So, the judgment of the investigator on the crime scene with the assistance of other responders such as patrol officer should be given deference in the implementation of investigative actions. So, in implementing investigative actions, so kailangan natin pahalagahan o kailangan i-value natin yung mga statements ng ating mga witnesses na nandun sa crime scene. So, useful po ito in further investigation to a successful. So, maging successful po yung investigation at maaresto yung mga responsible sa crime. So, ang judgment lang investigator, kailangan din bigyan ng importance tsaka ng mga iba pang responder like the patrol officer. So, lahat ng information, mga gather na information sa witnesses, yung sa mga responders. So, kailangan nating palagahan ito, bigyan ng importansya as we implement investigative actions. So, as further reminder to the investigator, one of the most important aspects of securing and protecting the crime scene is to preserve and maintain the crime with minimal mutilation, alteration, and contamination, including unnecessary disturbance of the physical evidence, as long that it is not yet being recorded through photography, note-taking, and sketching. So, isa pa pong reminder sa ating investigator, ito po ay isang importanteng aspeto in securing and protecting the crime scene. It is to preserve the crime scene. So, first and foremost, kailangan talagang i-preserve ang crime scene ating mga criminal investigator. It is to avoid mutilation, alteration, or contamination na ating mga physical evidences, physical clues. So, kailangan walang disturbance sa mga physical evidences. So, as long na hindi pa ito na nare-record through photography, note-taking, and sketching, so kailangan i-preserve ito para po hindi siya ma-contaminate. So, in the conduct of special crime investigation with regard to any crimes or offenses, the investigator must always bear in his or her mind that the safety and physical well-being of police and law enforcement officers and other individuals in around the crime scene must be also secured and protected. So, once criminal investigators are in the crime scene, hindi lang yung mga physical evidences, physical clues, ang kailangan nilang i-preserve o pag-ingatan. So, they should also be aware or be careful because it also involves the life of the law enforcer or the investigator and the people around the crime scene. So, kailangan din nilang i-secure yung mga tao na nasa crime scene and of course, yung sarili nila na nagkakandak ng investigation because sila po yung susi para malutas ang isang criminal case. So, finally, all activities conducted at the crime scene must be documented as soon as possible to preserve information and to be used in the preparation of report. So, final reminder po sa ating mga criminal investigator is once nagkakandak sila ng investigation sa crime scene, lahat ng nakukuha nila, nakakollect na evidences, so kailangan nilang i-document o i-record para po ma-preserve yung information at it is also po needed in the preparation of report. So, kailangan pong i-document lahat ng mga possible information or mga physical evidences kasi kinakailangan din po ito para sa, yun nga po, sa preparation po ng report. Mindset in special crime investigation. In discussing special crime investigation mindset, in part professionals in the field are talking about the self-awareness and the organizational awareness to avoid negative outcomes. So, in discussing naman po sa special crime investigation mindset, so, ang kailangan po dito ay ang self-awareness and organizational awareness. Self-awareness is po maging aware tayo sa bawat kilos natin, sa bawat salita natin. Kasi nga po, in this profession, kailangan alam natin yung mga ginagawa natin, alam natin yung mga salitang sinasabi natin kasi nga it may result to a negative outcomes. The same po sa organizational awareness, kailangan alam po natin yung mga do's and don'ts or mga rules and regulations ng isang organization kasi nga po para ma-avoid natin yung negative outcomes. So, once learned and practice, pag nakapractice natin tong mga practice yung self-awareness and organizational awareness, magagamit natin to as a safety net against destructive practices which is like tunnel vision, case ownership, and excessive secrecy. So, tunnel vision is yung pong from the word itself, tunnel. So, yung pag-iisip na parang dire-diretso lang. Hindi tinitingnan yung ibang possibilities. Yun po. So, special crime investigation can require complex thinking where investigator must assess and determine the validity of information and evidence to guide the investigative process. So, investigative crime investigation is nagre-require siya ng isang complex thinking. So, kailangan malawak yung pag-iisip mo, very broad-minded ka, hindi lang halimbawa, itong evidence para natapos mo siyang imbestigahan. So, na-finish mo siya, so nag-stop ka na. So, hindi lang dun basta nag-i-stop yung special crime investigation. So, kailangan siya ng once na nakakuha ka ng lead or clues about sa isang evidence, kailangan mag-move on ka ulit sa another that may help you at success, that will help you solve the case or the crime. So, kailangan yung complex thinking, kailangan broad-minded ka, hindi simple-minded kasi kinakailangan ito sa isang criminal investigator. So, it will assess and determine yung validity ng information. So, kailangan aware ka sa sarili mo, yung mga kung valid ba yung information na nakuha mo. Kaya nga kailangan yung complex thinking to guide the investigative process. This thinking strives to move from a position of mere suspicion to one of reasonable grounds for belief to make an arrest and ultimately articulate evidence upon which the court can make a finding of guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. So, once a criminal investigator have a complex thinking, so from a position of mere suspicion, so from a suspicion, he can make or can form a reasonable grounds for belief to make an arrest and articulate evidence which the court can make a finding of guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. So, helpful siya as a tool in criminal investigation. So, every criminal investigator must have this complex thinking because it is very helpful in forming reasonable grounds which can lead to identify the person or persons responsible for the crime. So, from this conscious process, the investigator in court can articulate a mental map or may describe niya how they derive from their conclusions. So, moreover, proceeding towards learning the investigative thinking process, criminal investigator must keep in his or her mind that first, investigative thinking is disciplined in thinking. So, kailangan, ito yung mga kailangan i-process o palaging isa-isip ng isang criminal investigator. So, investigative thinking is disciplined in thinking. So, kailangan disiplinado ka sa pag-iisip. So, kailangan kontrolado mo yung sarili, kontrolado yung kilos, galaw, lahat kailangan disiplinado. So, 2, pangalawa, this is a process of being intentionally engaged at a high level of analytical thinking. So, needed din po yung high level of analytical thinking. Kaya nga, yun nga, di ba, required yung complex thinking. So, kailangan laliman mo ang iyong pag-iisip once na isa kang special crime investigator. So, 3. This thinking process is strategically focused, prioritizing investigative plans and actions to achieve outcomes. So, itong thinking process is strategically focused, prioritize niya yung mga investigative plans and actions para po ma-achieve yung outcomes na ina-expect of. Yun. And 4, developing a mental map. This investigator deliberately selects a path of the investigation will follow. So, ito po yung pinaka-importante sa lahat, yung mental map. Kailangan alam mo o na view, na imagine mo na sa isip mo kung anong path ba investigation na susundin mo. So, kailangan siya ng complex thinking, kailangan disiplinado ka, at saka nasa high level din yung analytical thinking mo. Kasi nga, it is more about how you think, how you do it. Kaya nga, yun nga, sa umpisa pa lang, it is a multifaceted problem solving. Kaya kailangan dito ng critical thinking or the complex thinking. So, finally, he or she must travel the path with the knowledge, abilities, and skills, or even work values, as the outcome will only be accepted by the court if the rationale can be recalled accurately and articulate in detail. So, finally, kailangan nasa mindset ng isang criminal investigator, she must travel the path with knowledge. Kailangan alam yung ginagawa niya, alam yung gagawin. Kinakailangan din ng abilities and skills. Hindi lang yung basta mga task skills, kailangan din ng thinking skills and even work values. Kailangan marunong magpahalaga sa trabaho. And so this is all needed. The knowledge, the abilities, the work values. This is all needed because the court will only accept it if the rationale can be recalled accurately and articulated in detail. Yung may explain mo yung process or step ng isang criminal investigation sa korte. May explain mo how you derived from that conclusion. Yun lang yung i-accept ng korte. So, yun nga, kailangan disiplinado ka. Disiplinado yung pag-iisip, lahat disiplinado. So, kailangan ng isang criminal investigator yung mindset na isang disiplinadong pag-iisip, complex thinking, critical thinking, lahat kailangan yan. Kasi nga, hindi tinatanggap ng korte yung hindi mo kayang i-explain lahat ng process or steps na pinagdaanan kung paano ka napunta sa conclusion, paano mo tinapos ang isang investigation. So, that's all po. Sir, thank you.
Thank you for listening.